I'm a millennial. I'm old enough to have taken the first wave of all this. I'm young enough to watch them do it to you next, even harder. Let's get into that. I want to talk to you, Gen Z, directly. The people who keep telling you that you are soft, you're lazy, and addicted to your phones, those people are not in this video. They are not the audience. You are the audience. I'm talking to you. I want to be specific because for 40 years, older people have been talking past the younger people in this country, and I don't want to do that anymore. I see you. That's the first thing I want to say. Older millennials were raised inside the same conditions you were raised inside, just earlier in their development. We saw the floor crack. You were born after it cracked. We took the first wave. You're taking it now, harder, with less support, with fewer of the fading institutional structures that we still have to remember from childhood. And I want to say out loud what a lot of us in our 30s and 40s have been quietly thinking for years. You weren't given any of the conditions that older people are demanding you produce results inside of. That's not your imagination. That's fact. We have the receipts. We've been collecting them. Here's what I want you to know about millennials, and why we are your older siblings in this fight, not your antagonists. We were the first generation to be told a college degree was mandatory. We were the first generation to discover after we got it that the labor market did not pay what the brochure promised. We were the first generation to experiment en masse with a contingent labor model that the marketing people called the gig economy and the rest of us called working 3 jobs that did not add up to 1. We were the first generation to delay marriage and children and home buying because the math didn't close. We were the first generation to watch a financial crisis erase our parents' retirement savings while we were in college, and then to be told the recovery was strong while we entered the worst graduate labor market in 50 years. We were also the first generation to be called entitled, lazy, soft, addicted to our phones, killers of every industry from diamonds to napkins, ungrateful, and uniquely dysfunctional by the same people who set up the conditions we were trying to survive inside. We've been there. We're still there. Many of us are renting. Many of us are still paying student debt in our 40s. Many of us are watching the housing market move further away from us each year while being told by people who bought houses on a single income at 26 that we should have made better choices. We know what it sounds like. We know what it feels like. We've been hearing it for 25 years, and we're watching them do it to you now, intensified because the conditions have gotten worse since they were doing it to us, and you are growing up inside conditions we only encountered as adults. I want to show you what I mean, side by side, because I think it helps to hear it. Let's look at an older millennial, graduated into the 2008 recession. Average student debt was about $25,000. Median home price was 4 times the median income. We were called entitled for asking why none of it added up. And typical Gen Z, graduating into a precarious gig economy. Average debt, approximately $37,000. Median home price is about 6 times the median income. You're called lazy for asking why none of it adds up by the same people who called us entitled. Same script, same dismissals, same people delivering them. The only thing that has changed is the magnitude. Price has gone up, wages have not. The lectures have stayed exactly the same and gotten louder. You inherited the conditions we've been trying to name for 15 years. You inherited them with one major addition. You grew up inside them as kids while we encountered them as adults. We had a brief period of believing the old story before the math caught up to us. You didn't get that. You were born into the math. You've known the entire time. That is not weakness. That is being the first generation to start the race already inside the truth. I want to read something. This is what we share. Shared receipt. Inheritance in common. A planet 2/10 from cooked. A housing market that requires inheritance. Healthcare priced like a luxury good. A retirement system that won't be there. Wages that haven't tracked inflation since 78. Student debt you can't escape in bankruptcy. A gig economy with no floor. Lectures from people who built it. And the right to be called the problem. This is what we share. That's the alliance. That's why I'm not your enemy. That is why no millennial doing the math honestly is your enemy. We're on the same side of the same line. They drew it. They drew it specifically to keep us divided so we would fight each other instead of looking at that line and asking who drew it. We're looking now. We're looking together. They're nervous about what we see. I want to apologize for something because I've heard older millennials do it. I want to call it out before they do it to you again. Some of us, when you started showing up with the language for what was happening, burnout, structural inequality, mental health, intersectionality, all of it, some of us got defensive because we'd been trying to name the same thing for a decade with worse vocabulary. And instead of being your allies, some of us said, you talk about yourselves too much, too online, you make everything a syndrome. The previous generation did this exact thing to us. We turned around and did it to you. That was wrong. I'm sorry for the millennials who did that. The fact we suffered without the words does not mean the words are wrong. It means we suffered without the words. There's a difference. You showed up with the framework. We were waiting for the framework. The framework is correct. You're not too sensitive. You're accurate. There's a difference, and I'm tired of pretending there isn't. You are not too much. You're the first generation to show up with the vocabulary for what they did to all of us. Use the vocabulary. Now the part for them. The people who set this up and who are now telling you that you're the problem. Not the boomer who worked 30 years at a factory that closed. Not the boomer on a fixed income. The other ones. The ones who got the cheap house and the cheap college and the pension and the protected wage and then voted for 40 years to make sure none of those things existed for the rest of us. The donor class boomer. The country club boomer. The guy at Thanksgiving who lectures the table about work ethic from the comfort of inherited capital gains. I want them to hear this directly because I've been waiting a long time to say it on behalf of 2 generations, and I want it on the record. You are not the smartest people in the room. You are the people who entered the room first, when the room was being subsidized by your parents' generation, and you spent 40 years rewriting the rules so nobody else could enter on the same terms. That's not achievement. That is occupancy. There's a difference. You didn't work harder than us. You worked inside conditions that no longer exist, conditions that you spent the rest of your lives systematically dismantling for everyone who came after, while telling yourselves and us that the ladder was still there because technically you could still see it from where you were standing. The ladder is gone. You took it apart. You sold it for parts. You used the parts to build extensions on your beach house. We all watched you do it. We've been watching for 30 years. We're done pretending we did not see. Calling Gen Z lazy is the most embarrassing position in American public life right now. They work 3 jobs. You worked 1. They're paid in equity that does not vest, gigs that do not unionize. You're paid in wages that bought houses. They're managing depression you would have managed by drinking. They're honest about their experience. You called the same honesty weakness when we said it. You will call it weakness when their kids say it too. You'll be wrong every time. You've been wrong about every generation younger than you, and you will continue to be wrong because the lectures are not analysis. They're insulation. They protect you from looking at what you did. We're tired of the insulation. The next time you feel the urge to lecture a 22-year-old, I want you to think about 3 things. 1, do you know what their rent is? 2, do you know what their wage is? 3, do you know what the ratio between them? If you can't answer those 3, you're not qualified to give the lecture. Sit down, listen, bring an apology. We'll talk after. You can keep lecturing or you can keep your seat at the table. You will not get both. Gen Z, I'm going to close the way I opened. I see you. We see you. Older millennials see you. The country's moving in our direction. The only people who don't see it are the ones who would lose the most if it kept moving, which is exactly why they're screaming the loudest right now. Their volume is information. The louder they get, the more nervous they are. You're not soft, you're not lazy, you're not addicted to your phone in some unique pathology. You're the most aware generation in American history about the structures around you, the most honest about what they cost, and the first generation that has refused to put confidence in the system that the system did not earn. That's not weakness. That's the first sign of a country starting to fix itself. We're with you. We'll keep showing up next to you. We'll keep voting next to you. We'll keep saying the things at family dinners that they don't want said. We'll keep handing the microphone to you when it's your turn to speak, which is more often than not because you are usually the most accurate person at the table. You are in the microphone. We're not handing you anything. We're getting out of the way of what you've already taken. Gen Z, we see you. They see you too. That's why they're loud. Stay loud back. We're right here.